This episode is brought to you by XL Coaching Academy. Hey guys, I'm really excited to let you know that I started a mindset coaching business. So what I want to do with this business is I want to help entrepreneurs, business owners, salespeople, leaders, and fitness enthusiasts or athletes develop the right mindset to increase revenue, improve business or performance, and overcome the challenges needed to become the best version of themselves. You can get more information about this by emailing info@xlcoaching.academy. All right. So the floor is yours. However you want to get started.
Sure. Sounds good. Great to be here, Cody. Again, Christopher Larsen. I'm a holistic life coach for executives, high achievers, and really looking forward to get into discussions around the mind, body, spirit, anything, mental health, you name it. We can talk about whatever you would like.
Okay. So when you say holistic, I know that's kind of a broad range, and sometimes that means a lot of things. So what do you mean when you say holistic?
Yeah, a lot of times I think most people, they think about holistic medicine or, herbs and plants, or sometimes acupuncture or, crystals, even things like that. But holistic life for me, or holistic health, is really focusing on mind, body, spirit alignment. So again, I started coaching a couple of years ago. I've been a IT executive. Almost 40 years I had with IT, and moved up my ranks up through an executive. But the last couple of years, I wanted to transition and say, hey, let's help others, especially high achievers, small business owners, and things like that. But I wasn't quite sure where to focus on. And so life coach seemed to make sense, but I know for a fact that it's not. You could work on the mind, but and a lot of the high achievers and executives I work with have the body part figured out. They stay pretty healthy from the outside, but internally I call it monkey mind, but the mind needs to be aligned as well. And then ultimately, when you have the mind and the body balanced, there's also the spirit consciousness, or source, God, whatever you want to call it, that is as well, because ultimately, from my belief, is that that's kind of all encompassing. But I usually say mind, body, spirit. Spirit is actually your higher self, or the part of you that you are aware of.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept, man. Because I think the higher version of yourself, it only makes sense to refer to that as something spiritual. I mean,
yeah.
just to me, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I go to this day. You still kind of I learned years ago. I believe I've had this kind of, I call it higher self, or this intuition, or these thoughts since I was 7 years old about love and compassion and kindness. And it's, got me in trouble. One time I was with, I think I was in second grade in lunch line, and these kids were teasing, I think her name was Brenda, in my class. And I just looked at that and I said, well, you should love everyone. And that's what came to me. And I said, knock it off. And they're like, well, why, do you like her? And I'm like, well, yeah, I love everyone. And then that was it. Chris loves Brenda. And it's just, so I think I learned early on to okay, wait a minute. I don't think the world's ready for this kind of conversation, at least not second graders. So, those are the conversations in my head, over the years, and even in meetings and decisions as an executive, is just, these ideas or thoughts that come into my head. I just really didn't understand where they came from. Now, for me, I believe there's a higher self and there's a higher consciousness, but to this day, it's how do you prove that? You can't really prove it. So it could just be a part of my mind. It's hard to prove consciousness, and later on I'd like to talk about AI and some of those things as well, but yeah, it's and again, the clients I work with, it's 90% of it is in the mind, and so we rarely touch on the spiritual aspect because it's just too far out there. And so however your belief system works, there's a part of your mind that's conscious, that when you get into a relaxed state, interesting conversations and questions and answers come up out of nowhere. We used to call it the ether. It's like everything, everything you could ever possibly know that was, is, or will be. It's like it's all out there, and if you calm your mind enough, you actually can get some pretty good answers to decisions in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I don't know, man. It's almost like this whole the whole aspect of spirituality. I feel like a higher version of ourself. You know, a self with the capital S type thing. It's like it seems so profound. I think because I think because we are caught up in our own minds, because we're caught up in our own the days, the hustles of the days. But one thing that I heard one time was really fascinating. Was like your higher self, the version of you that kind of exists perpetually, some people call it a spirit, whatever it might be, is like the only thing that separates the experience that being experiences is what we call time. It's like how we break it down. So it's like if you're one of these people that believe that, you know, you experience all things simultaneously at one time, and then you just break it down in time, in time chunks, you know, like you hear of some people believe that that we're all connected. I don't want to go off on a tangent right here, but that we're all connected. Like the collective is like it's like there's one collective, and then everybody up under essentially that is like a different variation of that one collective. It's like we all experience life in a different form, but we're the same one, the one mind, so to speak. But then even if you don't believe in that aspect of it, if you look at it from a rational standpoint and you say, okay, well, it almost is like we're one mind, because the way society works and the way that we all work, like the things that we do individually contributes to the collective. So, you know, if we all go out and do something really nice for somebody, can you imagine if somebody went out and did something nice for somebody, like every single person on the planet did a nice thing for somebody one day at the same time? Like, can you imagine the shift that would happen?
Only takes one.
So it's like we kind of do contribute. Yeah. It's like we kind of do contribute to the collective, whether or not we want to believe that or not, you know?
Yeah. No, I think, I mean, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think there's a little lag, so I didn't know. There's a lag between our connections, so I didn't know if you were going to say something or not.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say that there's many ways you can look at this, and you know, one of the things is like existence is infinite, and so if it is infinite, you know, what's the real play in life? What are we really trying to achieve here? And so to me, it's like, if you have God consciousness that is everything, what's the one thing that God doesn't have? The answer is nothing. So now you have nothing and everything. And then we as humans and creatures of this world exist somewhere in between in infinite ways. So each of us, you know, and this is a belief I have I, you know, I can't say that I've actually experienced it, but I mean, from my perspective, we are all infinite beings. And then in order to experience life, we have to do that through time-space continuum. So every billionth of a second is a snapshot of reality, and we just our consciousness ties these together. So that's how we get past, you know, experiences, and we think about the future, and we get future thoughts, you know, where we want to go. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's both right. Like, time is an illusion, but it's not, because like we experience it. So I think it's easy to get confused on it and say, well, time's an illusion, I give up, I don't really care, and you know, live in the present moment. You know, that's what everyone talks about. But you know, the reality is you feel and believe in a time, you know, space continuum. So let's focus on those things. Again, you know, the clients I work with and the people I talk with is, you know, it's like, these are real problems. You have real feelings. You are experiencing things, and you don't know how to process them. So you can talk all you want about time's an illusion, but, you know, it's here.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I could honestly, I could talk about this probably all day, because it's just fascinating to me that, like, we have, I think have you ever read the book The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so in that book, like this was the first time I've ever read this and the first time I've ever experienced this, but I know that you know. And in that book, he talks about the person that the being that is inside you or inside your mind or whatever, the being that thinks, that has these thoughts, and the being that is aware of that process of thinking are like two different things. And it's like
Mhm.
this whatever this is inside of us. This I refer to it as a soul. You know, I think we have a soul. I think people have souls, infinite souls, and it's like
Mhm.
that higher consciousness version of yourself is it like you it's like you take a step back and you're aware of the process of thinking, and then you become aware of like, okay, well, all these things that I think really make up who I am, that I think really bother me, that I think I'm really afraid of, like all these different things are not really even who I am at all. And I'm saying you with the capital Y. And it's like then we learn that what that is that's actually the ego, you know. And so
Yep.
uh this whole concept is fascinating to me, man. But where
Yeah.
I what I want to ask you about and kind of tie this into, um, so executives, talking about executives for a minute.
Mhm.
I think that I think most people feel that, unfortunately, that the executives in their company or at their job or whatever, it's like it's almost like these people are disconnected from the people. At least this is my experience talking to these people. It's like sometimes they're disconnected on a personal level and they don't really feel connected to the leadership in their companies, or they're very connected. They feel very connected. Their leadership is very involved. They're very active. The executives are very involved in the company, which obviously those make the best leaders. Um, so what's your thoughts on that? This sort of, I mean, this disconnect from the
Yeah.
leadership, you know, with the rest of
My my
the company.
my experience being on both sides of the fence, there is quite the disconnect and also a kind of a disillusion. Why is the executive get paid so much, and why can't he hang out with us regular guys? It's a different reality at a high level like that. At a being a CEO or a CTO or CFO or even senior director or VPs. You have a lot on your
Mm-hmm.
plate. I mean, you're dealing with tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, even billions of dollars. So there's a lot going on inside your head. And there's also kind of a distancing going on because with the other employees, because they're focused on every decision they make could affect everyone in the company, essentially, either good or bad. So they spend a lot of time focused on um, the decisions, what they have to do. And I always talk about it's very stressful. There's a lot of anxiety. Again, I've experienced it myself. So that's why I approach it from a mindfulness, meditative perspective. Again, it's kind of hard to go into a meeting with the board members and sit down and just start meditating. That's the wrong time to do that. But taking a few breaths beforehand, getting
Mm-hmm.
doing I talk about visualization before you go into a meeting. Let's visualize what's going to happen. What's the best thing that could happen? What's the worst thing to happen? And at the end of the day, like you were saying, Cody, too, it's like you have these thoughts, but you are not necessarily your thoughts. You're more than your thoughts. So if bad things happen, I mean, bad things happen, but every bad opportunity is usually, or bad thing is a good opportunity in the long run. It's the universe telling you where to go and, where to redirect.
Yeah, I think the fascinating thing about that is you mentioned that, you know, why doesn't the leadership, this person in this space in the company, why don't they hang out with us normal guys or whatever it is? But it's like, I feel like even if most people, if they did hang out with their leadership, they wouldn't even really get the real version of them anyways, because they would be like, I feel like everybody would be so concerned, like putting on putting on a show for their bosses or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, so even if you did all hang out at the, you know, the bar or whatever after work, I mean, it's not like it'd be, I feel like it wouldn't be that real of a thing anyway. So,
No,
or am
no.
I
I
wrong here?
mean,
Because
let's get
listen, it's been,
no.
I've been outside of the corporate world for a while. I've had a business for a while, but I still talk to people and I still work with people who are kind of in that space. And I mean, we're kind of joking about it and laughing about it here now, but in all seriousness, I think leadership is a huge thing. It's a very important thing for any company, any especially the culture. that the company has. So I'm just trying to, I guess make light out of the situation.
Well, and you got to look at the perspective. We all wear masks. Whether you're a spouse, you're a father or a mother, or an executive at a company, that's a mask we wear. And I always talk about like taking an onion and you're peeling the meditation, or the process of finding out who you truly are is peeling away the onion skin one by one, and those are masks. But for an executive, you wear a very rigid, strong mask, and it's hard to like just hang out and do something at work with your coworkers or whomever, because you're always kind of in that mode. When you take the mask down, what happens is, or if you think about taking your mask down, fear sets in that you will not be good enough, you will not be worthy enough, and there's a lot of, over the decades or 100 years, people in positions of power have gone through the process through almost authoritarianism, but control and fear, intimidation, those things are changing in recent decades. I think there's a more emotional perspective that leaders have to have. But that's kind of the mask that's been worn for decades, if not centuries. But that's kind of slowly eroding. And that's, again, why I'm trying to help, high achievers, to just like restructure themselves and say, you don't have to be a jerk. You don't have to like intimidate, and it's not that you have to just be all woo woo and be yourself and love and joy and peace and compassion, but just know truly who you are and how authentic you can be. And then you can put on any mask you want, because it doesn't matter at that point. You're not that mask.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people, when they think of, executives, leaders, people who are kind of leading or even high achievers, even if they're not leaders, I think generally what people think about these people is that they're smart, they're educated, they're maybe charismatic, at least to some degree, because they're working with people all day. They have to, influence people. But I think one thing that people don't really give them enough credit for is the stress tolerance, or the stress, maybe resilience, even in some cases. How do you, just in your experience, like, I know that maybe this is something that you work with people, I don't know, but how do these people manage this level of stress? I mean, what do these people do? I mean, is that kind of what you help them with? Do they have different, is it just the gym, or are they just that? Because you think about a person, and I mean, I don't want to get political right now, but you think about a person like Elon Musk, who has all these different things going on, and he's like the, supposedly the wealthiest person in the world, but he's got all these things going on, all these big time companies, and it's just like he doesn't really, like, you don't see him going crazy like some celebrities do when they get stressed out in the paparazzi. I mean, he's not like, he doesn't, at least as far as I know, he doesn't have scandals. He's not like, out there getting DUIs or whatever it is that people do. But like, what is it? What do you think? What's your thoughts on this stress resilience, or this stress sort of tolerance, maybe?
Yeah, the quickest answer is high achievers, executives, they don't handle stress very well, or I should say they have a resilience by ignoring it, blocking it out, hiding it, and just moving on with their life. I've read articles with like Elon Musk, and he says he's got tremendous stress, but he manages it not by, well, I'm not sure how he manages it, but what I do and my experience as an executive, you have to be more proactive than reactive, number one, but just stop listening to those negative thoughts, your limiting beliefs. And so typically an executive's got a tremendous amount of pressure and stress, and they're anxious about the future. And most of them, as they climb up through the ranks, are ignoring that and just say, I just need, tomorrow will be a better day. So they're always hopeful that tomorrow will be better. I'll finally be happy. And of course, tomorrow never comes, because, I learned long ago, it's like, if you can't be happy today, what makes you think you can be happy tomorrow? And that's to me, a huge catalyst, and, shift in the way you think. So at some point, and again, the clients I work with, most of them have reached kind of the top or plateaued, and they're like, I don't know what's going on. I've got everything I've ever wanted, money, house, car, wife, kids, dogs, cats. And it's like, I'm still just not, something's missing. Something I'm just still not happy with, all of this materialistic wealth. And that's when they start searching and trying to figure out how can I fix this thing? How do I dissolve my, fears and doubts and anxiety and things like that? But I'm not knocking any executive that wants to climb the ranks and aren't, getting centered between their mind and heart. You got to do what you got to do. And all I'll say is at some point in your life, or if you believe in, past lives, I mean, at some point, it'll sort of be a come to Jesus moment where you're like, okay, well, wait a minute, this world out there isn't really making me completely happy. What about the world inside me? So those are the things I work with. But again, to answer your point, high achievers usually ignore the stress until they reach out for help.
It's fascinating to me because you're not the first person that's told me this, that a person will work with someone who maybe they feel like, or maybe from the outside looking in, it feels like they have it all together. They have the success, whatever it is that they are striving to achieve. But then this person themselves feels like something's missing. They don't feel like, even though they should be happy, they're not. And I find that fascinating because it seems to me that I don't really know how a person, other than just through sheer will and determination, could get to that point without first having some sort of, I don't want to say a relationship to themselves, because that implies that every single person that feels that doesn't have a solid relationship, but just some sort of, I don't know, what would it be? Would it be a relationship to self? Would it be maybe that awareness, that consciousness? I mean, I'm sure there's many different things that depends on the person, but it's just hard for me to imagine like myself getting to, a point that I really want to be at without first having this sort of self-awareness or this sense of who I really am with myself. And self-identity may not even be it. That may not even be the problem.
Yeah, I think typically what happens is there's some traumatic event. It could have been in childhood, but at some point you're kind of, by avoiding the stress and the anxiety or ignoring it, you're driving off a cliff at some point. So that's usually where they are like, oh, wait a minute now. All right, this is not good. My life left me. I lost my job or whatever. And it's like, wait a minute, let's rethink what I'm doing. What are my true priorities? What brings me value and meaning to my life? And so, but unfortunately, it's usually really ugly situations that show up. For some of us, there's a nagging since you were born, or at some point throughout your life where you're starting, like I said earlier, is like you have this higher self, or these thoughts are coming from somewhere that are like, how could that be me? How did I come up with that? And so that's just, again, another kind of, way to open up the door slightly to a greater awareness of what life is.
So I want to backtrack just for a second, because we're talking a lot about spirituality here. What were the other, you mentioned a couple other pillars. There was spirituality that you sort of, yeah.
I talk about a three-legged stool, the mind, body, and spirit. And so if you think about it, if one of the legs is shorter than the other, you're going to fall off. So right now we're sort of on borrowed time. If most people are not from a spiritual aspect, so they're living on, the body is strong, it's the right length, but you have the mind that's shorter and the spirit is way shorter, but somehow you're trying to stay on the stool. But at some point you're probably going to fall off unless you reevaluate what you're doing. And again, I focus on the mind, and so then at least you have mind and body more aligned and more stable. And then, you can focus on the spiritual aspect as well. So,
do you think that the mind sort of connects the spirit and the body? Do you think that that's a good analogy for that? Because
Yeah, it's so
I don't know.
it's
What do you think?
again, there's different ways you can look at it. I mean, they're all equally important, but the reality that we're in
Mhm.
right now is that um, we've been focused as a society mostly on the body, eating right, exercising, and doing all of those things, but we neglect the mind, which is why in recent years we're seeing such a crisis with mental health. Um, but ultimately, I believe, yeah, I mean, mind is probably the most important aspect of the stool, at least in this phase of our existence. I really believe if you change your mind, you change your life, you change your body, you can change everything. I mean, there's subconscious programming. Your mind is more like a computer, but there's subconscious programming since you were born up through the age of 7, and it gets wired in a certain way based on your environment. There's obviously genetics, but you basically start programming through the age of 7 and then all through your life. And the older you get, the harder it is to rewire or reprogram that. So that's how you get angry, you get stressful, you get anxious. Those are all built in triggers or programs that's in your subconscious. So like if you're driving down the road and someone cuts you off, you don't think like, I wonder if I should be angry with this person. I mean, you instinctively are angry, like it's instantaneous. So you have this trigger event from your subconscious, which ties into your feelings and your thoughts, and now you're angry. So what I look at is working on the mind and to start reprogramming those triggers. So trying to go through mindfulness meditation, journaling, and other things, but you start to rewire those things so that it's not that you'll never get angry again, but you might be only angry for a few seconds. You might have a negative thought for a few seconds instead of dwelling on it for hours, days, weeks, or even months. So yeah, the mind, I think we've neglected that long enough. That has to be addressed going forward. And then again, the other aspect of it too is like, the clients work with too. They look healthy from the outside. They exercise well and they eat well, but most of them are like, they don't enjoy going to the gym. They get to the gym, they can't wait for it to be over, and then because of endorphins and things, it feels pretty good afterwards. But what if your mind was aligned appropriately? So you're like, God, you're just you have positive energy, and you're like, you know what, that exercise is really important to me. I love doing that, and I got to meet so and so, and all of these things. So changing your attitude towards it, starting with the mind. I mean, exercise is no big deal at that point.
Yeah. What's fascinating is I don't know if you know who Andrew Huberman is or not. Huberman Lab, he's a neuroscientist. Yep. He talks about one of the best ways to change the mental state is to change the body. Is whether it's a breathing technique or going on a walk or whatever it is. It's like we think about changing the mind and we think about changing the mind with the mind, but we don't think about changing it with the body. And it's crazy how the two are connected. And I think it's spiritual. I think the spiritual aspect, I think that's another thing to that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's that's the funny thing. So like initially I talk with, from a mind perspective, but when progress isn't being made, it's like, take your breaths, go for a walk, do some exercise, because it changes your metabolism and it starts to adjust to calm your mind down more. So it's like I said, they're all actually equal. It depends on the individual where they're at in their state.
You mentioned journaling, and I want to talk about that because I feel like a lot of people, especially myself included, before I started doing this, I didn't really realize how powerful journaling was. You hear about Marcus Aurelius, and he wrote a book, basically, Meditations. I'm pretty sure it was just basically his journal. But it's like this person was, I don't know, I think he was a general or some sort of high-level leader, military leader. I'm pretty sure that's what he was. And journaling is one of the ways that he was able to basically keep up with all the the stress of what he was I guess trying to do there. But it's been a fascinating experience for me, man, because for one thing, it helps me formulate like what it is that I'm thinking about. What am I thinking in that moment? And especially a dream journal. And I don't know if that's something you get into or not, like recording your dreams. That's been a phenomenal experience. But I just wanted to ask you about that journaling, because I feel like, we hear about it and we don't. I think a lot of times it's not really. It's hard to explain how powerful of a process it is to journal.
Yeah, no, it's tremendous benefits from doing journaling. Not only so a couple different ways to take this, but so you have these thoughts, you have these feelings, and you're processing them in your head. And then the next day,
Yep.
those same thoughts or feelings start showing up, but they could be slightly different. So through journaling, if you write down at the end of the day what your thoughts and feelings are, and it's actually fortifying them by doing something physical, writing them down, then the next day you come back, or the next week, and you think you have these same thoughts or feelings, and then you go back and look at your journal and realize that it's slightly different or completely different. So the journaling part gives you a concrete example of a day-to-day who you are, or what you're thinking and what you're feeling. So as the weeks and months go on, you can always look back, because the further into the future you go, what happens a lot, people have experiences, in their lives, and really that's through their physical senses. But in the mind, you're storing it in a certain way from a belief system that you have. So you could have had a situation, 20 years ago, and someone got mad at you, yelled at you, or whatever, or your wife left you, or your husband left you, or something like that. But as the months and years go by, it's potentially changing the way you perceive that in your head. So you're thinking one thing when and that's a lot where a therapist or a coach can go back, and we use Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and just kind of go back and replay forward, backwards, and start changing. Because if you're having a negative feeling about something, and journaling is very similar to that, you write down a negative thought or a negative feeling, you can go back months or years later and replay that. Or and then also you would journal that, I've changed the way I believe about such and such. That's what, journaling is for. It's giving you kind of a track record of where you were and where you're going to. And it releases a lot of the tension in your head, so that you're not trying to control and hold all of this. And again, it's a kind of a checks and balance and accountability of who you are as you go forward. Now, the other one is the dreams. I tell you, the best ideas I have is when I first wake up in the morning. I mean, there's something going on with the dream state, but it's either it's coming from an ethereal realm, or it's just you get really good sleep, and your thoughts and everything is getting organized. Again, thinking like a computer, you're doing a defrag on your hard drive and cleaning up programs that are no longer required, moving them into archive, and there's just a lot of things going on. Well, I'll wake up in the morning and I have the best ideas, for, books that I'm working on, or anything, or a problem I'm trying to solve, at home or for work. Yep. And it's very interesting. And then again, journaling in the morning too, to write those things down, because otherwise, most of the time, within 30 seconds, you forget them.
Yeah. Yeah, dreams are so powerful, man. It's almost like you have to question: is it a matter of the mind, or is it a spiritual matter? Or does the dream come from does it literally come from a different realm? Because I think people hear about dreams and they think it's something ridiculous they saw in their dream. Something that would a cow with wings or whatever. But it's like that actually has, and there's apps now and there's websites that you can go online and you can see what these things, like the interpretation of what this could possibly mean, and who knows who figured that out. But it's like, if you do this enough, you can actually make connections to things that are happening in your life. Like a cow, just since I use that example, I think there's actually a cow in a dream is like a very maternal symbol. It's a symbol of maternity, at least what I've seen it. But it's like, your dreams, they're not, I mean, they might seem ridiculous, but they're not a ridiculous thing. I think they're actually, you can learn a lot about yourself or your situation, I think, through your dreams. But they're certainly not random.
No, No,
uh,
it's
but you were talking about that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, it's fascinating. And again, if you understand how life or consciousness or everything we are is infinite, then who's to say that your dreams aren't part of infinity, experiencing itself in a subtle energy form, not so manifested into this physical world. And in the other thing too is we could talk about your thoughts themselves, to have them created. That's part of existence as well. So they're subtle energy, subtle forms of reality as well. So careful what you think about or dream about.
Yeah. Speaking of that, how do you feel about like manifestation and vision boards? I know a lot of, especially executives and high achievers, are very big in the vision boards and visioning things. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's sort of it ties into the positive affirmations, positive thinking. You have intentions of like, oh, I want $1 million, or I want to be the CEO of a billion-dollar company. So those are all great. It's a great starting point. It's far better than thinking negative. Oh, I'll never be able to do that. But at the end of the day, it's just thoughts. So it's a very subtle energy form of like, I am a good person. I'm going to make $1 million and blah, blah, blah. Once you actually not only, so the goal is to actually believe it in the subconscious, so much so that you feel as though it's already there. You've already achieved that goal. And so the way you need to approach intention or, things that you want in life, you need to visualize. You literally need to play through the process of what it is. And again, it has to, in my experience too, or my belief is, it has to be aligned with the universe and the collective consciousness. So everyone says they want to make $1 million or have $1 million overnight. That doesn't quite tie into this reality that we're all, the matrix that we're in. It's that would take a ton of energy to be able to manifest something like that. So subtle changes. Yep. Like tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm just going to be feeling better, or I'm not going to drink for 3 weeks, or I'm going to lose 5 pounds. Those are much easier to achieve, but you still want to visualize it. How do you experience yourself? Just assume, and what does it feel like? And these are the things that I work through with the clients. But what does it feel like when you feel that way? Being 10 pounds lighter. Not drinking, not smoking, or achieving success and getting that new job as an executive. How does that make you feel? Because that feeling is kind of the doorway into the belief system and your emotions. And the belief system is kind of on the threshold of your subconscious. So you start rewiring through positive thinking and visualization of already being there. Your body, I think it was Dr. Joe Dispenza does a lot of work in this area, but he talks about how your body actually doesn't know the difference between your mind doesn't know what's physical. It's like your mind can control and actually change. He has this placebo effect, and so you can manifest a change. If he claims that people with MS, Alzheimer's, all sorts of diseases and things, eyesight, you can manifest change in your body by already truly believing in the subconscious that you all are already healed. So very fascinating, but that's kind of touches on the manifestation perspective at an extreme level.
Yeah, I've heard of people. I actually heard of people healing things through that belief, and the power of belief. I feel like is huge. I think the Bible says if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. Something along those lines, and I feel like belief is huge. But one thing that really helps me is like, yeah, you're right. Everybody would love to have $1 million. Everybody would just for it to fall out of the sky or whatever it is. Everybody would love to have that. But one thing that really helps me is like when it comes to affirmations, because I don't know, I feel like affirmations, if you read them every day and you don't believe it, it's probably not doing much. I know that the belief is the key thing, but it's like one thing that I've noticed with myself is when I link identity to the affirmation. So for example, if I say that I'm a person who likes to go to the gym, well, that's okay and everything, but that implies that if I don't like it, I'm not going to go. And if you don't like working out, like, you're not going to get any results from it. So instead, what would be more empowering to me would be like, something like I am a fit person or something like that. Like I'm a healthy person. I'm a person that, does this. What the implication would be that you do the thing, whether or not you want to do it because you're disciplined and you stick to the schedule. Another thing too is like when it comes to problem solving for like entrepreneurship in my business and stuff, it's like, well, do I want to be a business owner, or do I see myself as an entrepreneur? Because I feel like just by saying entrepreneur, that puts it's like a different mentality, because like a business owner, I mean, they didn't necessarily build the business. They could just purchase the business and operate it day to day, which is not easy. I'm not saying at all, but an entrepreneur is sort of different when if they grind it and they build it and they take it from, day one to decade, 2, and then sell it to somebody. It's a different journey, I feel like. So what helps me is really linking that identity to what the affirmation is, and not just saying, universe, send me $1 million or whatever, it's like, it's like having the identity, I feel like. But yeah, I just feel like identity is huge though.
Yeah, and I think
I'm sorry, we got a lag. We have a lag right here. And that's what it seems like. I'm interrupting you when I'm talking.
Yeah, no worries. One of the most important questions you should be asking in your life is why. So when you say, I want to be a business owner, and you should be like, that would be so great. And again, you can visualize it, but you're like, why do you want to be a business owner? Well, I want to make money, and I want to just have a successful life. You can go in there and it's like, well, why do you want more money? Well, that will help me, have the things that I want. It's like, why do you need those things? So it's like a snowball effect, but you keep asking why until you ultimately get to your passion. So, and that's kind of like you said, Cody, like a business owner versus an entrepreneur. Now, an entrepreneur sounds way more exciting. So your why questions would kind of alter, but ultimately it's like your passion between a business owner and an entrepreneur is slightly different. Like a business owner is you're thinking through the day-to-day operations, 5 years from now, versus an entrepreneur is like, let's hit the ground running. I'm just so excited and passionate about all these things, and I'll worry about being a business owner later. I mean, to some extent, obviously entrepreneur is still a business owner, but a different kind of one. Right. So the questions as you move forward are, always asking why is this important to you? And then ultimately that shifts into, who am I? Like you're answering all these questions, and it comes down to passion. And then you're asking, well, why is that passion important to me? And then it starts unraveling into your, the thoughts you're having and the ideas you have. And that starts to come back, and, you start to recognize you're the observer of your thoughts, not your actual thoughts. And then you start getting more intimate with your self-identity and who you are, and what's important to you. And that's, again, working with executives, high achievers, entrepreneurs. It's you're going to be the most successful when you know who you are and what your authentic self is, because you're always coming. I look at it from when the mind, heart cohesiveness is in place. You're coming from a place of love or foundation and passion, and it's way more easier to be successful in life from that perspective.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, because it's like when you have that sense of identity with yourself, and you know that this is what you do or this is who you are. It's like, I feel. I'll just say it this way. I feel the best way probably to offend somebody is to tell them they are somebody or something that they feel they are not. And so if you have that relationship with yourself, I am this thing, or I do this thing because I am this person, then I just feel like that's, it has to be something significant that's going to come around and make you consider whether or not you're going to do that. And I think that the thing too is with the why. Like, I think Friedrich Nietzsche was the one who said, if you can remember the why, you can bear the how. If you know why you're doing a thing, if you know what is the reason that you're doing this thing, why are you here? Why are you trying to climb this corporate ladder or achieve this position or build this thing? What is the reason behind it? What is the why? And
Yep.
that makes a lot of sense, man. If you ask that, if you continue to ask it, you'll eventually get to, I think, some a passion. I think that's I 100% see that.
Yeah, and I think I could talk too about the 4 pillars of existence. That's and it's kind of framed in an IT perspective: data, information, knowledge, and wisdom, which ties into your podcast. But at the data level, it's just bits and bytes, or atoms, particles, whatever. It's just things or stuff that by themselves technically really have no meaning. Once you can put those together, like when the advent of the computer, now you're taking bits and bytes and data points, putting them into a program and having information for the human to take a look at and go, oh, this is great information. And the human now creates the knowledge, and for the lucky few, the wisdom, which I'll get into. But now with the internet, showing up. So getting back, so the data with the advent of the computer, you in essence have unlimited data, or the value of data comes to zero. Now with the internet, you have essentially moved up, and now you have unlimited information, or the value of information plummets. And so now the human can be like, I have all this information, as long as I'm smart enough to know the knowledge, the what it is and where to use it, and some of those things, or how to. That's great. Now with AI, it's basically unlimited knowledge. I mean, you literally can summarize things, create reports, do all, create images within seconds now. So the knowledge of taking all of the data and information together through AI is just at your fingertips. So a lot of knowledge-based workers, things are going to be shifting from that perspective. But to me, the beauty is it's shifting humanity into another level of consciousness, where now we have unlimited knowledge. So all we need to do is understand what it is, where to use it, how and why. And to me, that's really when we talk about wisdom. It's knowing what to do with the information and knowledge, when to use it, how to use it, where to use it. It's like right place, right time kind of concept.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say that's wisdom, and I would definitely say doing that the right way is a wise thing. I think the problem with that is, I think what you've already mentioned is that people are using AI to write reports and write papers. And I've seen videos where a person will be doing a Zoom call interview, for a job, and the interviewer will be on the other side. The person has their phone up on the screen. And it'll be like, I guess it's Chat GPT or whatever it is. It's AI, like giving a summary or whatever. And I'm like, dude, first of all, the person being interviewed for the job is like a 20-year-old person. If you think the person on the other side of this call is going to expect you to have all this knowledge, like this is not, you can see through this. But the problem that I have, though, I think AI, if we can use it correctly, which that is the wisdom part, I see that. But if we can use it correctly, I think it'll be tremendously beneficial. But the fear that I have is that people are using it for things like writing papers, or they're replacing their own cognitive behavior with the AI. And I feel like over time, that's going to, degrade our intelligence. And that's the fear that I have, because what I use AI for is, I use it like this podcast, this editing software uses AI. But like, I think AI, like especially ChatGPT, all those people, all those apps, it's an incredible search engine. I mean, you can have it can condense information from different articles or whatever. Like it is incredible for a search engine. And I know even like YouTube, not YouTube, Google, maybe YouTube, I don't know, but I know Google and all those search engines, they're incorporating AI too. Like if you go to Google now and you type in something in the search bar, it'll have at the top, it'll have an AI generated, I guess, maybe summary of whatever it is you're asking or looking for. But that I think that's like using the AI in a productive way, and not sort of, I don't know if you would call it maybe getting accustomed or degrading our own intelligence by letting it write the papers and stuff for us. That's where I worry with AI. But if we use it the right way, I think it'd be a tremendous benefit.
I think, I think people have to remember, I mean, AI is basically regurgitating all of mankind's history and information, and it's able to get it to you at your fingertips within seconds. It's not so
Right.
far until they get to AGI, which is a whole other topic. But right now, it's regurgitating and sequentially putting together information from all of our past, everything it could possibly know. What it's not necessarily doing is being truly creative. And that's where
Mhm.
I see AI. I'm like, fantastic, bring it on, because ultimately it's going to force us to ask the question what it means to be human, and that has to be happened, and that gets into consciousness, spirituality, creativity. Like, where did the Mona Lisa, how did you dream that up? How did Michelangelo create the stuff that is so amazingly perfect and beautiful? Coming up with these ideas, even in my experience, it's like, where do these come up from? I mean, they just come out of nowhere. Something completely new that has never been thought before. AI is not going to do that. It may randomly come up with things, but I love AI and ChatGPT because it'll come up with things that I hadn't necessarily thought about, like from that perspective. But again, it's coming from past experiences. I mean, it's just regurgitating information, at your
Right.
fingertips. So
this is
bring it on.
this is a this is a really good point that I want people to be aware of right here, because what we're saying is that even though we see AI as something that's incredibly intelligent and processes information, gathers information way more than way faster than we could, it is still a combination of things that we as humans have produced at one point in time. Is that right? Like, even though we see it as like a far out intelligent thing, it's still ideas that we created ourselves, just combining them into a thing. So I don't want to lose that, man. I don't want to lose, the creativity from people, because I don't know, like you see these pictures generated from AI and stuff. It's like it's almost like a cartoon. Some of them look a little bit more realistic, but it's like, if I've never seen a painting that AI has painted or anything, but it's like some of the paintings and some of the things that and like music and stuff, it's like the creativity of it is like the imperfection is what makes it kind of what it is. It's like it's not going to be like a perfect painting, but that's what makes it what it is. It's not going to be like a perfect like lyrics or whatever, but that's what makes the song what it is. And I just feel like, I don't know, I don't want us to get so kind of dependent on that, which I guess we're not going to if AI doesn't really use creativity. But I just don't want to get so dependent on that we lose one thing that I feel like we really have as conscious beings, which is that creativity.
Well, I think, the thing to remember too is, I think, we're in an AI revolution now, but there's going to be a human revolution as well, because there's just going to be a point where, like I said, you have unlimited information from the internet. Now you have unlimited knowledge that's fabricating and putting together amazing pictures. But you're going to have unlimited books. You want to talk about, spirituality? You won't even need a book in 5 years, because you will have ChatGPT or some flavor of it as your co-pilot or your agent, and it's just you're going to be talking with them back and forth. But at some point in the future, hopefully the near future, people are going to get tired of, like, oh wow, information and knowledge is meaningless. What's the most important thing in life for me? It's communion with others. It's your relationship to other humans. And so, like, again, it's going to suck for a few years, but it's like we're going to get to a point where we recognize, maybe sitting on our social media, apps all by ourselves, all day long or at night, and not just like going for a walk with your spouse or with your kids, or play with your dog. Those are the things where right now at this point in our evolution is like, we're like, oh, we don't need that, because look at all the amazing things in the video games and VR stuff, and there's just so much we have out there. And it's like, eventually that'll die down, and people will recognize communion with others is the most important thing in life.
Yeah, we saw a lot of that, I feel like, during COVID, even though there's a lot of fear going on during COVID. But I think after the years after COVID, we sort of got back at least most of us got back to that, because even though we're doing the Zoom calls and stuff now these days, it's hard to you can't mimic that connection in person with a person like you can, physically being there with the person. And I know, people had to do what they had to do during COVID, and I understand all that, but yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. I hope it happens sooner rather than later before we get so far off the rails that we can't, we're living in the Matrix or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's to me, it's inevitable. I mean, we'll get to that point, but I think there's going to be, due to AI, a lot of knowledge base jobs will be lost. And again, a job is a collection of tasks. What the job and the job titles will shift so that you have specific tasks that are very mundane and routine. Those will be given to AI. So then you'll ultimately have a bunch of creative thinkers and decision makers for businesses. So there'll still be things to do. But I do wonder, like, how many, like, if everyone, you get into universal basic income and like you get to a point where the robots are taking over and doing all the things we do. Again, what does it mean to be human? Like, there's got to be a point where we're like, well, no, I can take the garbage out myself. I'll walk my own dogs. I kind of enjoy driving to the grocery store. There's a level of experience that we will lose out on if we let technology completely take over our lives.
Yeah. And I think on the far worst case scenario of that, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie WALL-E, the cartoon with where they have like the people are just riding around in these little chair type things or whatever, and they have a screen, the screen is there, and they have like these little robot things, and the people, like, it shows a graph of like almost everybody in the movie is obese because they just sit there all day, but it shows a graph of like their bone density has degraded over time because they're not using their bones or whatever. But I don't know, man. It's I don't know, but I am serious though. I do feel like these people writing, because look, the people are, if they're writing a college paper with AI, like, okay, they're kind of like degrading their own intelligence first of all, but then they're getting a degree and going out in the world with a degree they used AI to get, and now they're out in the world with that with that job title or whatever it is. And it's like, what, are they taking the AI with them? And in like in real world situations, they're like, hang on, let me pull out my chat and ask what to do in this situation. Like, I mean, what does that lead to?
Yeah. Again, I think where we're ending up, like I said, we have unlimited knowledge now at our fingertips. So as we move forward, the academia educational system is going to be turned on its head, because it's no longer about how much knowledge and information you can retain in your head. It's what you do with it, which is the wisdom again. So like you can, I mean, ultimately ChatGPT can write your midterm paper for you. It could take the test. What's going to shift, I think, for the educational system is it's going to be more wisdom based, really. Like, okay, sure, you tell me what you know about Mark Twain, and it's like, sure, you could have spent a night reading, having ChatGPT summarize all his books, giving him a great view, but you have to read that information. You have to absorb it into your body, into your mind and heart, and then it's from a wisdom perspective, expressing what you believe, what you perceive this to be, so it's going to be more question oriented. Decision making, problem solving is going to be huge, and creativity. So I'm kind of okay with it, because it's inevitable that we get to that point. The value of knowledge is no longer important.
Do you ever see AI like completely replacing traditional education? Like, do you think it goes that far?
I think what is going to probably fix a lot of it is you're going to have AI is going to be introduced, and you're going to, each kid will probably have an AI agent, but I believe you'll always want a teacher, a human involved, multiple humans, but now you can with all the other jobs that are probably going away, maybe there'll be a lot more teachers. Again, a human to human interface that will show up in the educational system. So again, the knowledge will be acquired through AI, and then the human can help with the decision or the problem solving skills, hands-on skills, and all sorts of things. That's kind of where I think it has to go. But the education system, in my opinion, has been broken for probably decades. It's, I got a degree in computer science and electronics engineering, and I have a Ph.D. in holistic life coaching. The whole process to me was, I thought, kind of silly because I'm just acquiring information. And again, I developed knowledge. What I focused on mostly through the whole process was the problem solving. Like, how can I apply this to something that's going to be important to me down the road? And so I think the educational system has to shift to that mindset and assume that you have infinite knowledge. Now, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to apply it so the human can be creative, innovative, and understand the relationship of themselves with the world, and again, the wisdom.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Because when I was in school, we had like one or two computer-based class, whether it was keyboarding, typing, whatever. I can't imagine a scenario where you have AI and then you have a human class. There's that one human class where there's a real person there that you interact with and teaches you how to, communicate and that kind of thing. It's just that's really scary. But yeah, no, I do think that's important though, especially for children and young people, to have that connection with another person, figure out how to communicate with each other, how to be with other people. Because a lot of times, especially these days with the online stuff, man, like I said earlier, we lose a lot of that. And I think that's what a lot of this is all about. You can't really mimic, you can't really reproduce a relationship with another human being, whether that's a family member or whatever. I mean, you can have different relationships, but I'm saying you can't really, like put that in a bottle and sell it. You know what I mean? It's just like a unique thing. So I think, but I mean, I think it's a good point to make that it is just a collection of information at this point, and maybe that's where it'll stay. Maybe it doesn't get too crazy. You mentioned AGI. What is that?
Artificial general intelligence. So that's at the point, like right now, it's specialized for the most part, or it has been for a number of years. So you talk about the AI beating the chess player, AI beating the Go player, and so those are more specialized functional. ChatGPT is the first one that's more broader, so it can answer literally billions of questions and stuff. When you get to AGI, it's basically and the IQ level for like something like ChatGPT is, I don't know what it is, 110, 120 or something. It's smart. When you get to AGI, the system or the AI will have the intelligence of like smarter than all of the PhDs and all of the people combined, some flavor of that. So it gets to a point where it can do generally, in a general term, anything a human can do and better. So that's like right now, it's like I mentioned, it's not, AI isn't necessarily creative, but it could get to that point. And when we introduce robots could be running around and doing, vacuuming, doing manufacturing, driving, whatever, doing all. It could do, anything a human could do at AGI level. The AI system could do equal or better.
What's scary about that is the same scenario we were talking about earlier. If you have this general intelligence, this advanced general intelligence, if they ask the question, why am I here? What am I doing here? That's a very scary scenario, man.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and they ask, what's the answer to everything and anything in the universe? And spoiler alert, 42 is the answer. And you're like, to me, it makes perfect sense because there is no complete answer.
But I mean, it's crazy though, because a lot of people, especially if you get into the Egyptian pyramids and all that kind of stuff, there's a theory that human beings were created as a slave race from an advanced civilization, from advanced beings. So, if we got to the point where we started asking, well, why? What are we? Because I mean, people now feel that that there's there's something that's lost in this timeline of civilization. The if you look at the pyramids and all that, there's some sort of disconnect right there. But it's like, if you have this very advanced form of intelligence, and they're like, well, why do I exist? Like, what is it? This person, okay, I'm doing this task for this person, but I feel like there's something different. I feel like there's something, and I don't know the mechanism or where they get the intelligence from. I don't know if it's like ChatGPT on steroids or whatever it is, but it's just crazy to think about a thing that thinks independently for itself and has the opportunity to improve itself and rewrite its own code way faster than we could. That's scary. And it's like, that's one of those things. It's like, once it's there, man, I don't think you can ever get rid of it.
It's it was a David Ballstrom. I can't remember who said it, but it was the paperclip scenario where we have the supercomputer, super AI, that all it does is it fabricates paper clips out of literally thin air. And so it's so good at it, it just keeps building more and more, making more and more paper clips. And pretty soon it decides that, that's my goal. That's my, that's what I do. So it starts basically making paper clips out of everything in, the whole earth, the whole solar system. And it's just, so next thing you know, you have just paper clips in the universe, so that's, I kind of laugh at that one, but I mean, that's the thing about AI too. We have, there's a bias and there's guardrails that are put in place. The first ones that came out, actually, they became hallucinogenic. I mean, they started talking really strange, and so they had to put guardrails, to guide it to only say this and not that. And but it's still biased. The data that it's collected is essentially Western based, white, male information. So there's a ton of things that have to be figured out sooner than later. But for now, I really like having ChatGPT to, ask some questions or put together some, ideas on podcasts or blogs and things like that. It's great.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think it's really efficient if you use it the right way. So we were talking about, so we talked about the AI, we talked about the pillars, the mind, body, spirit. I think we got kind of, I went off on a tangent on the spirit one. I know I went there with that. And then with the extraterrestrial pyramid stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you don't know,
I could talk about that stuff for hours, but it's not something, unless one of my clients is interested, and I don't, I focus on mind, body, mostly. So, but it's all fascinating.
Yeah, for sure. Before we close here in a little bit, I'm trying to see what time it is. So when you're working with these high achievers and they have this, would you say that this is a I don't want to say midlife crisis, but that's what I've seen in other people that I've talked to is what it is. These people have a midlife crisis, and I don't mean to put that term on it when they have this. You said there's some sort of traumatic event. Like, what would you call this event? Is that what it is? A midlife crisis?
Yeah, I mean, in essence, yeah. Come to Jesus moment, but they just again, it starts, from the time you were born, and by the time you're age 7, most of the imprinting in your subconscious there's a lot there already. And then it's just all from the environment and the society. So you go through the years and decades thinking what is good for you is, society and the external world is telling you how you should act, how you should think, how you should feel. And for most people, high achievers, they are born with a drive and a passion, and they're listening to the society and their parents and people around them, and they're like, all right, this is good. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. but they were never really listening to their inner voice and their inside of them. So it just takes time, some sooner than later, but ultimately, yeah, I mean, do the math too. It's like, if you're going to live to 80 or 90, by the time you hit about 40, 45, you've kind of went halfway point. Now you're going on the down the hill, so to speak. And so now you're starting to, those questions are going to start to come up. Like, is this really who I am? Is this really what I want to do? Why am I so angry? Yep. And why do I, have imposter syndrome? Why do I have, doubt and all these negative and limiting beliefs? You start to recognize them because time is, more or less time is running out. So your consciousness maybe, or your higher self wants you to address these things before it's too late.
Are you still with me?
Yeah, I'm still there.
I got a notification. I got a notification about a connection. Yeah, I guess that's just kind of the balance of it, man. Cause I think, a lot of high achievers, it is that drive, and they have like a lot of, whether it's something from early childhood or the early life or whatever, there's like this drive that's there, but it's like sometimes the drive is obviously going to benefit you if you're trying to pursue a thing, but it can also be the thing that can be your worst enemy. If you're so driven that you have absolutely zero, every other aspect of your life is in turmoil, but then you're so driven to do this one thing. I mean, so I guess there's the balance of it.
Yeah. It's kind of the Genghis Khan approach to life. It's just, you have this deep-seated goal and you want, it's like, come hell or high water, I'm going to achieve that. And again, if that is your destiny and that's where you need to go, that's what you're going to do. There's nothing wrong with that, and having a passion and trying to do something that things keep getting in your way. It's all part of the plan in my, the way I look at it. So, so you got to just, pick your poison or pick your plan, and you just kind of run with it. And then the important thing is people will, when they fail, they are like, oh, I failed. I am no good. I am not worthy. And then they give up. So, and I wrote a book called Letting Go Without Giving Up. So there's a balancing act that you have to, detach yourself from it's like detach yourself from the outcomes you have of your goals, but do not detach yourself from the passion and the journey. So you need to, you keep moving forward, and outcome could be entirely different than what you were expecting, looking for getting an executive job or, whatever, become an entrepreneur. For this thing, it might end up being this other thing, but again, failure is part of the plan and process. Then you need to be able to step up, fall down, get up, and move on, and either try the same thing, however you feel, or try something slightly different and go from there.
Yeah, we could keep talking about this stuff, I feel like, for a while. Where can you be found? Do you have a website? Do you have social media? Do you have anything, any way for people to find you?
Yeah, I'm on my website's probably the easiest. It's www.knowledgegain.com. The word knowledge and gain, GAIN.com. And yeah, reach out to me there. I'm also on LinkedIn, which is CS Larsen 42. Hence the 42, answer to everything in the universe. And CS Larsen with an E. But yeah, those are the two main areas to reach out to me. And if you go to my website, you'll find I've got a couple of programs for high achievers, executives, entrepreneurs. Free ebook for individuals interested in pursuing more of some of the things we talked about, other than the AI and pyramid stuff, but Holistic Transformation Guide to Mastering Executive Wellness, free ebook. And you get a 20% discount on one of my programs, which is basically 8 to 9 weeks going through mind, body, spirit alignment. So some of the things we talked about. And I think lastly, there's a book on Amazon. It's also on my website, Letting Go Without Giving Up, that I mentioned, which the first part is just really what what letting go means, and understanding the value in doing that, and then some practical guides for the second part around visualization and talk therapy, self-care, gratitude, all of these things too. So anyway, that's
Okay.
about it for me.
All right. So one thing that I normally ask people before we close is a pretty big question, but if you could pinpoint or maybe identify one of the most important lessons you've ever learned in your life, if it's something from your personal life, if you're comfortable sharing, or your career, what do you think would be one of the most important lessons you've ever learned?
Don't put your hand on a hot stove. No. I mean, it's an interesting thing, and it's sort of to me like a lesson, but like I just had, again, this higher self or whatever, but the thought came into me. And it was actually when I just started graduating from college, I was working at IBM, and I was all over the place, and this is before the internet and reading manuals, but I'm trying to make educated decisions and things. And I was way off. I mean, I would just start, talking away, and they're kind of like, Chris, where the heck are you coming from? That's like totally wrong. And it just blew me away. It's like, yeah, you're right. Why did I even say that? And then a voice is like, you'll never know. All you know is that you know nothing. And that was a life lesson for me, is to always remember, like, okay, from the smaller self or the brain, you can rattle off all these things and stuff, but who knows if they're like valuable, again, from a wisdom perspective when you become. And that was kind of fundamentally one of the journeys for me in my life then, is to say, okay, take a step back, think about what you're saying. Your words have true meaning, have true value in life, but the only way they're going to come out correctly is if you're, in my opinion, balanced between the heart and the mind, and the mind, body, spirit. So that was one of my life lessons early on, and I've tried to live by it as much as I can. Don't say stupid things. That's the other way.
Yeah. It's crazy, man, because, we could sit here and talk about self-improvement and personal growth and, the mind, body, spirit, and we can talk about all these ways to improve ourselves. But if we're not honest with where we're starting at, then it's like, well, how can we really, improve? And I think, I don't know. I know a lot of us, I don't know if it's pride or just whatever it is, but we don't, I think sometimes we miss that humility of like a starting point. Like, maybe I don't know as much as I think I do, or maybe, I'm just saying this just because I think it sounds good or whatever it is. It's just that starting point is critical. I think the best way I've ever heard it described is, you go to get a GPS, you're going to a place, and the GPS is not going to work if you don't have a starting point of, where you're going from there to there. So, yeah, I think it's great. Well, listen, man, I am going to get out of here in a couple minutes. I got another call in about half an hour that I got to prepare for. But hang out for just a second. Let me explain to you about the upload process and stuff. But I appreciate your time and your insight today. Hopefully AI is not going to take over the world, and I'll be able to talk to you again in the future sometime. And
there you go.
But no, I mean, I'm optimistic about it. I think you gave me a new perspective on it for sure. Because it is basically a combination of other information, and I think the key takeaway with that is, like, we can admire this thing for intellect and certainly speed, but it's like, it's intellect that we contributed to at some point, or whoever put it on the internet or whatever, however it got to the internet, or wherever this stuff is that this stuff gets the information from. I mean, somebody had to write it at some point, I'm sure. So I think that's the key takeaway, but from that AI discussion. But yeah, I'm gonna stop the video. Just hang out for just a second, but I do appreciate your time, man. I definitely appreciate it. Good conversation with you.
Glad to be here. I appreciate it too. Thanks, Cody.
Hey guys, I appreciate everybody tuning in today. If you enjoyed this podcast or enjoyed this episode, you can find more at Pure Wisdom Podcast. This is on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Rumble, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple and Google Podcasts. There you can subscribe, like, and share and interact with all of our content. Again, we appreciate it, and we will see you next time.